Okay, let's dive into this. So think about the word great for a second. I mean, we throw it around for everything, right? From, Alexander the Great to that amazing song you just heard. But what does it actually mean? And maybe the biggest question of all, who gets to decide?
No, seriously, have you ever really stopped to think about it? Is greatness some kind of fact you can prove with, I don't know, a spreadsheet? Or is it just this thing we all kind of agree on because history told us to? Or is it just a feeling, that gut feeling? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
I bet you felt it. You're walking out of a concert, the cool night air hits you, and you're just buzzing. You know in your bones that you didn't just listen to some music. You were part of something, and it felt, well, undeniably great. So let's start right there with that feeling, because it's a really powerful place to begin. So let's bring in our first judge. And who better to start with than the people who actually create that feeling? Musicians. See, in their world, the final say on what's great doesn't come from some high and mighty panel of experts. Nope, it comes directly from the audience. And this really gets to the core of it, right? Perfection? It's not the goal. I mean, a performer could hit every single note perfectly, like a robot, but if you don't feel anything, it just falls flat. Real, true greatness in a performance, that comes from honesty. It's about making every single person in that audience feel like they're in on something special, something real. And you know what? Musicians actually have a word for this. They call it being in the pocket. It has nothing to do with being perfectly on time like a ticking clock. It's all about a groove that feels alive. It breathes. You know that magic moment when the whole band just clicks? That's it. And it just goes to show you, greatness is so often about the feel of a thing, not just the technical stuff. So, okay, how do you find that pocket? Well, it's about being willing to, and I love this phrase, dare to suck. Yeah, you have to be willing to take a chance, to maybe sound a little messy, to embrace the imperfections, because that's how you find something that actually connects. So greatness, at least here, takes some real courage. All right, let's switch gears and bring in our next judge. We're going to scale up, okay? We're going from a concert hall to the entire world stage. And we're talking about a name you absolutely know, Alexander the Great. Now, in his case, the judge isn't a crowd of cheering fans. The judge is history. And let me tell you, history has a very, very long memory and a whole lot of conflicting opinions. Just look at this. It's like two totally different guys. In one corner, you've got the legend, the tactical genius who sliced through the Gordian knot. But in the other corner, you've got the ruthless despot, a man whose ambition left a trail of destruction. So, who was he? Which one is the real Alexander? Well, the truth is, it completely depends on who you ask, right? It depends on which side of his conquering sword you happen to be standing on. One person's liberator is always another person's tyrant. So for these huge historical figures, greatness is this really messy soup of what they actually did and the stories we've been telling about them ever since. Okay, so we've talked about greatness when it comes to individuals, a musician, a conqueror. But what if great isn't about one person at all? What if it's about how an entire society endures? For that, let's bring in our third judge, survival itself. Let's look at the city of Edo, what we now call Tokyo. About 400 years ago, this place was heading for total ecological disaster. But its path to greatness wasn't about going out and conquering more stuff. It was about turning inward and embracing this amazing philosophy called motanai. It's this deep-seated idea of valuing what you already have, of being satisfied with just enough, and, this is the key part, focusing on repairing things, not just replacing them. Now that is a totally different kind of greatness, isn't it? And this philosophy led to some truly incredible art. You've got kintsugi, which is the art of fixing broken pottery with gold. Think about that. It doesn't hide the damage, it highlights it, makes it beautiful. And then there's boro, which is where you weave together old scraps of cloth to make these stunning new garments. Both of these art forms prove the same powerful point, that something broken can be put back together and become even more beautiful and valuable than it was to begin with. You know, this idea of what we value changing, it brings us to another really interesting judge. Time itself. Just think about comic books. Seriously, back in the 1950s, people thought they were poison, a menace to society, corrupting the youth. But flash forward to today, we see them as incredible teaching tools, a genius way to explain super complex ideas. Time didn't just change the verdict a little bit, it completely flipped it on its head.
Okay, so let's recap. We've had the audience as a judge, we've had history, we've had survival, even time itself. It feels like everyone gets a vote. So where does that leave us? What's the final verdict?
Well, here's the thing. There isn't one single judge. Greatness isn't some permanent label you just stamp on something and walk away. It's a conversation, an ongoing conversation between the creator, the audience, and time itself. It's this living, breathing thing. So maybe the best way to think about it is this. Greatness is whatever helps us make sense of it all, right? Whether it's a song that gives you chills, a historical figure that makes you think, or a city that shows you a different way to live, if it helps us understand our own experience, our world, maybe that's what makes it great. And that, of course, brings the whole conversation right back to you. Now it's your turn to sit in the judge's seat. What's something that you think is great? Something that maybe the rest of the world has just totally missed? Could be a book, a band, an idea, anything. Give it some thought, because the conversation, it's all yours now.